The King's Gambit starts e4, e5, and then we gambit our f-pawn with f4. The frustrating part of trying to learn the King's Gambit is realizing that a lot of people, about 51%, will decline it. Luckily for us, there's a setup we can play where we basically have the exact same game plan, regardless of how exactly they decline, and it will usually transpose into the exact same system. The two popular ways to decline are pushing the pawn to d6 and playing knight c6. We'll look at the slightly more common, knight c6, but remember, they pretty much always play d6 anyways and it transposes. No matter what, we're going to start with knight f3, covering the h4 square, and following the most common moves, d6. This is the transposition I was talking about. And no matter what, we play bishop c4, targeting the f7 square. From here, this is our development plan. We're going to castle kingside. We're going to develop our knight to c3, we're going to push our pawn to d3, and we're going to delay developing our dark bishop, hoping that they take our pawn, but they usually won't, especially if they're good. If they don't capture, after we finish development, we'll go ahead and take their pawn, and then usually this bishop will end up pinning a knight on f6. Following the most common moves, they usually pin our knight, we castle, they play knight f6, and here we'll play knight c3 or we'll play d3, following the exact same plan we were just talking about. We have a nice harmonious setup, it's going to be very easy to play, and it boasts a 55% win rate. Back to the starting position, accompanying our two decline lines, we also really need to talk about the Falkbeer Counter Gambit with d5. Now if you're a beginner, this one's going to be pretty rare, but the higher up you are in the rating ladder, the more often you're going to see this counter gambit. It is very good. Against the counter gambit, no matter what, we want to take with our e-pawn. And here there are three ways that players as black will handle this situation. We'll go from most to least common. First of all, should they capture, we start with knight f3, covering the check. Most people here will capture the pawn, which is an absolutely horrible move. Keep in mind, with the King's Gambit, we are playing a gambit system. We are more than willing to sacrifice material to accelerate our development, and black by capturing is letting us do that for absolutely free. And following the most common moves, we simply develop with tempo. The most common move is queen e6 check, trying to take the tempo back. We simply keep developing. Most common move is bishop c5, we simply play d4 with even more tempo. For the most part, the lines in the counter gambit where they do capture that extra pawn with their queen are going to be a lot better for white, sort of regardless of what the engine says. There's just too much pressure and too much attack. Back to our starting position, remember we always capture with our e-pawn. The second most common move is going to be this e4 move, the advanced variation. Here the move is a counter gambit with d3. Obviously, if they take, we simply capture back with bishop, but most people know better. They'll play knight f6 or queen takes d5. Queen takes d5, as we mentioned before, is absolutely terrible because it allows us to continue developing with tempo. So I'll assume the opponent knows better and plays knight f6. We simply capture the pawn, they'll usually take with their knight. And the move here is not queen e2, it is knight f3. And from here, the most common plan by far is playing bishop c5, trying to keep us from castling. We can simply defuse this by playing queen e2 with tempo, pinning the knight, and getting ready to play bishop e3. If you're worried about this check, don't be. It's not nearly as scary as it looks, because after they take with queen takes d5 check, we can simply move our f knight to d2, where it's defended 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Back to the starting position of the Falkbeer Counter Gambit. Remember, we simply take with our e-pawn. The third most common move here is played about a quarter of the time. It's queen takes d5. At this point, I shouldn't have to tell you that this is absolute garbage. We can simply develop with tempo, and no matter what, our plan in this line is going to be develop your knight and then capture the pawn. Literally no matter what. We'll start by developing the knight. Following the most common move, we have queen e6, capture the pawn. 93% of people will capture back. Again, Stockfish isn't very impressed by our position, but the 63% win rate says it all. We're on move 6 now, black's just been moving their queen around, and this game is probably going to end with a checkmate in the first 20 moves. Now that we've covered how to beat the cowards that don't accept our King's Gambit, we're ready to move on and talk about the idiots that do accept our King's Gambit with e takes f4. And first I want to talk about the main line of the King's Gambit, which starts knight f3, covering the check, and then g5, getting ready to kick our knight. Here, instead of the main line, I'm going to recommend the very daring bishop c4, which once again the engine hates. But trust me, we have a very, very good reason, because after g4, we're simply going to castle. And this, my friends, is the starting position of the wild Muzio Gambit. If your opponent is older than 1, they'll capture. and we simply take back with queen. Now here we're down a knight, but we're up a ton of things. First of all, development is going to be extremely easy. Our first 5 to 10 moves are all going to be top engine moves because we just develop our pieces. The knight comes to c3, the pawn's going to go to d3 or d4 depending on the situation, and our bishop's going to recapture this pawn. Obviously this is if they don't hang mate immediately. In my opinion, if you're going to play the King's Gambit, you might as well play the Muzio. Really the only valid response to white's overwhelming initiative here is going to be queen f6. The engine also suggests queen e7 and queen g5, but these are pretty terrible. First of all, if you're lower rated and you get to this point, if you're a beginner, you're basically already winning the game. It's obviously completely unreasonable to expect a beginner to defend this kind of attack. And if we only look at the more advanced players, you'll see that it does hold up even at the top level. And even at the master level, you'll see players like Hikaru Nakamura playing this with plenty of success. On top of that, your opponents are going to be hanging all kinds of mates in 2s, mates in 3s, forks, skewers, pins, so this is a great way to get honed up on your tactics. 99.9% of games below the master or at least advanced level are decided by tactics. And boy, are you going to have a lot if you play the Muzio Gambit. So let's say they do find queen f6. First of all, if you're really crazy here, I can teach you the double Muzio Gambit, which starts e5. They capture and we play bishop takes f7. Unfortunately, this one is slightly too dubious for me to recommend, but it is a ton of fun, especially in Blitz and Faster. Instead, I'll recommend d3, the standard move. And following the most common development plan from black, we have bishop h6, defending this pawn right here. We simply start knight c3, which is actually a pretty devious move when you consider we're threatening the knight jump to d5. Unfortunately though, the most common move doesn't let us get away with that. Black plays knight e7, and we capture the pawn on f4 with our bishop. And here we are actually more than happy to trade into an endgame, which sounds insane, but after we double up on the f-file, we actually have a very comfortable position because we're targeting this f7 pawn still. And most people in this position also will blunder the game immediately with d5. We simply capture with knight, and it is completely over for black at this point. Back to our starting position, what happens if they don't know g5 or they just choose not to play the main line of the King's Gambit? Which most people don't. I'm going to break the other accepted lines into two sort of variations here. There are going to be lines where black develops knight to c6 first, and there are going to be lines where black plays knight f6 first. No matter what, our plan's going to stay pretty much the same, but there are a couple nuances. Starting with knight c6, the more common, we're going to start d4. Should they play d5, we simply take, and if they recapture with queen, which 97% of players do, I shouldn't have to tell you this is complete garbage for black, and white is winning here completely. Next we'll look at d6, the second most common move, which is actually somehow worse. Here we simply take the pawn back. We're no longer playing a gambit. Our bishop's going to pin this knight, we're going to castle kingside, we're going to develop our knight here, and we're going to end up with an absolutely perfect setup. Next we're going to cover lines where black plays knight f6. The reason this is so notable is if they haven't played knight c6 or d6 yet, we can simply push the pawn. Knight g4, we play h3, that's no good. More commonly, they'll go to the d5 square. Here I recommend knight c3. Almost everyone will take, we recapture with d-pawn, reminiscent of the Stafford Gambit. And from here we already have a 68% win rate. Our plan is incredibly simple. We're going to recapture this pawn, we're going to put this bishop on c4, and we're simply going to castle short and attack on this f-file. And that's how you play the King's Gambit. Let me know which gambit I should cover next in the comment section. Don't be a coward, play the Muzio.